We talking about practice. Not a game, not a game. We talking about practice.
Welcome everyone to another After Practice podcast with myself, Lake Lewis. Appreciate you taking time to check me out. You know, we haven't talked in a while and need a little bit of a break after the Washington football team season ended. But some good news is that the podcast is coming back to you now daily. So we're excited about that. You'll get 2 video forms of this podcast, during the week. But for the most part, every day you can subscribe and get your audio version. So, got a lot of good things coming up for you. Got guests coming on now. So we appreciate everybody who's, shown the support. And they've been asking me, Lake, where have you been? Where have you been? Well, we just need a little bit of a rewind, just a little bit. But good thing is that the other good things that are going on at sportsjourney.com, you can see for yourself. I've got some great Capitals coverage, Wizards coverage. So we're trying to spread it out for all of the DC sports fans out there. So, the big news, obviously, for the Washington football team as their season had come to an end was the play of Taylor Heineke and what we saw in that playoff game against the Buccaneers, who by now, as you know, are competing in the Super Bowl on Sunday against the Kansas City Chiefs. So that should be an epic matchup between Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. Could it be the true passing of the torch? Patrick Mahomes has to take it from the old man. We'll talk about that shortly, but that should be a great game. Washington, I think, gave Tampa Bay their toughest competition in the playoffs so far. And it's not by surprise. I mean, this is a young football team that's got a lot of good things going for it. But the big talk has been, were they going to be in the, Matt Stafford sweepstakes? Were they going to be in the, Deshaun Watson sweepstakes? And I've said this numerous times. I'm a huge Deshaun Watson fan. He's actually one of my, top 2 or 3 favorite players in the NFL. And, if you can get a player like that, by all means, you should try. But I'm also leery of what you'd have to give up to get a player like that. If you saw what Matt Stafford, was able to recuperate, so to speak, if you're the Detroit Lions, you got multiple first-round draft picks and a couple second-round draft picks on top of that. If I'm the Washington football team, I'm standing pat. It pains me to say this because, like I said, Watson's one of my favorite players. But with all that said, if you're the Washington football team, you finally have a young nucleus of really good, talented players. I mean, in years past, this team would win some games and they would, go out and get free agents. They would go out and get other players who may have had their best days. This isn't the case now. This is an attractive setting here. You've got young players who, can be really good players. I mean, you've got 2 or 3 already who are Pro Bowl caliber players, and you've got one who's a generational player in Chase Young. So now, do you really want to go out and mortgage your future by trading a couple of those players and a package to get, don't get me wrong, a generational type quarterback as well? But do you want to make that trade? Because you're going to be giving up several pieces for one piece. Now, don't get me wrong, that one piece is huge. But I've been saying all along that I think this team needs to continue to draft, build through the draft. I just mentioned to you earlier, they gave the Buccaneers their toughest competition in the playoffs. Tampa played all 3 of their games on the road. And that first playoff game, that wild card here in D.C., was actually their toughest game. They went to New Orleans the next week and pretty much beat up on New Orleans. And they went to Green Bay last week or 2 weeks ago and pretty much beat up on them. So my thing is, if you're Washington and you see that you brought a player off the street in Taylor Heineke and he competed against the GOAT and competed against a team that's now sitting in the Super Bowl, what would make you believe that if you draft a quarterback who has talent, who you groom properly, that you can't be right back where you were last year or this year, so to speak, and that's in the playoffs? Who's to say that you don't go out and get another maybe a second-tier free agent quarterback, a Jacoby Brissett, someone like that, who's had some success in the NFL. And I say this again, and this isn't to bring up the whole Dwayne Haskins situation, because good for that young man that he's got an opportunity in Pittsburgh, and God willing, and God bless him that he can, get his career on track to where he wants it to be. No one wants to see someone fail, at least not me. So I hope the kid can really turn it around and do some great things in Pittsburgh. But in hindsight, there's no way that their quarterback play can be as worse as it was when Dwayne was in. And I think we saw that with Taylor Heineke. I think we saw that with Alex Smith. I think we saw that with Kyle Allen. All of them had some success at some varying degree. They had success. So my thing is, if you draft a quarterback and you get him in here and hopefully, you can get a full offseason of conditioning, a full OTA, mini camp, training camp, preseason. Hopefully COVID is, out of here by then, and we can move forward as a country, as a world, and get back to our normal way of life. If that happens, that rookie quarterback will have a chance to compete this year. I mean, that's something that Dwayne Haskins didn't have, and I think we all should take that into consideration. He didn't have that for his second year in a new system, by the way, with a new coach, new expectations. He didn't have that, and I think it really showed. It reared its head during this season. So now you move forward. You have to put all that behind you, so we're not going to talk about what ifs and coulda, woulda. We're moving forward. You move forward. You draft a quarterback. There's so many good young quarterbacks coming out in this year's draft, several of them. I know the name Mac Jones is floated around as a potential pick at 19 for Washington. He was the runner-up in the Heisman Trophy this year. Great quarterback, led the Alabama Crimson Tide to a national championship, throwing to Devonta Smith, who won the Heisman Trophy. And this guy's got, some moxie about him. He basically made people in Alabama forget about, Tua. They made him forget about that quarterback. So is he a fit for Washington? That remains to be seen. As in any rookie, I'd like to see maybe a little bit more of a mobile type quarterback here. No, I'm not talking Deshaun Watson, folks. I know that's where you're going to keep going there, but I think the asking price is going to be just absurd considering what Matt Stafford, was able to get being traded to the Rams. That's the biggest storyline right now for this football team. It's going to be their quarterback play, because everything else is pretty much, it's there. I mean, even at the wide receiver position, a position that clearly needs to be upgraded. They need to have another receiver outside of Terry McLaurin on the outside. They also, could use a bigger target, in my opinion. Cam Sims has shown some ability, but he's also shown inconsistency. I don't necessarily believe he's your answer as the number 2 receiver on the outside. I think Steven Sims is definitely a guy that should be in play more in this offense, especially in the slot. That's his position. I think we saw in his rookie campaign how dynamic he could be. And this year, he wasn't really utilized the same way. And a lot of that's contributed to different quarterbacks, different system. I think we saw when Taylor Heineke came in the playoff game, he was looking for Steven Sims, and Steven Sims made a great, end zone catch where he kept both his feet in bounds. And that just showed you how dynamic he could be. So if I'm Washington, I'm comfortable with Sims in the slot and McLaurin on one side, and I'm going to find another wide receiver. Kelvin Harmon could be back this year, should be back. He was injured early last year before the season even started. He hurt himself in workouts. So could he be back? If he's back, he gives them another target, because he was on an upward trajectory after his rookie campaign. Physical receiver, more of a possession type guy. And those are some of the plays that they missed last year, to be frank. So if they can get him back and healthy, that gives them a third receiver, but you still need to draft a receiver or go out and get a free agent receiver. You have to upgrade that position. Across the board, though, again, football team that's not too far off. And I think that a lot of people should be happy about that. This is a different and a unique offseason. This isn't the type of offseason that I'm accustomed to covering, where, I'm trying to push Kool-Aid down your throat. I'm trying to, sell you hope. This is a legitimate outfit here right now. They've made some really good offseason moves. I'm impressed with the hire of Martin Mayhew. Some people were coming at me and saying, oh, look at what he did in Detroit or what he didn't do in Detroit. I mean, he had some pretty decent drafts in Detroit. Matt Stafford came in under Martin Mayhew, was drafted under him. Detroit has been a dumpster fire for a long time. If you're as old as I am, you've only seen them sprinkle in the playoffs a couple times. I can go back to the days of Eric Hipple. I mean, I can go way back, and I remember Detroit being a team that was tough in that dome, in the Silver Dome in Pontiac at the time. Barry Sanders, but they never were a serious, legitimate threat to win a Super Bowl. They played Washington, the NFC Championship game, got smoked. I mean, I remember these things. So Martin Mayhew, since then, he went to San Francisco. Last time I looked, San Francisco was in the Super Bowl last year. And he had a hand in that. You can't sit there and say he was solely responsible, but he did have a hand in that. So you have to pay homage where it's due. You have to give credit where credit is due. So I think that's a good move for the football team. You bring home a player who also was, the last link to their last Super Bowl win against the Buffalo Bills in '91. And, he started opposite Darrell Green at cornerback. So it's a good move. I think most Washington football team fans are okay with this move. Marty Herney, I'm telling you flat out, I did not want him to be the GM. And it's nothing personal. It's just that, sometimes I do get tired of seeing the same faces always retreaded, and you get fired somewhere else twice, actually. And then you land on a job, and it's hard for guys like myself to ascend and keep ascending upward, so you think about those things, but, hey, that's what friends are for, I guess. And he's here. He does have experience. You can't say that he's never had success, because he did. He had some success in Carolina. Even though he was fired twice from Carolina, he still had some success, and he had it with Ron Rivera. So Ron Rivera brings his guy here, but he also hires Martin Mayhew. Another facet of the Martin Mayhew hire is this team sticks with their diversity hires, and, I'm all for that. I don't think it's something that needs to be front and center and done just because to appease people like myself, the people in my race. No. But when people are qualified, they deserve to have an opportunity. And I think if you look at Jennifer King, first African-American female full-time assistant in the NFL, she deserves the opportunity. She's worked her ass off for that. So she's getting the opportunity. Julie Donaldson worked her tail off, and she's doing a great job running the media department. And then, of course, Jason Wright, what can you say? I mean, he's transparent, he's articulate, he's the guy that's just kind of becoming the face of the franchise outside of Ron Rivera. And, both those gentlemen have done really, really good jobs with this franchise. So, I guess the less you see of Dan Snyder, the better. And that's kind of how it's been. The franchise is headed in the proper direction, in the right direction. And if you're a Washington football team fan, you should be thrilled right now. And that's why I say to you, do you want to get Deshaun Watson? Would you trade in, trade this year's first-round draft pick, next year's first-round draft pick, and you're probably going to have to trade, a third this year, maybe a second next year, and the wild card is probably going to be, you're probably going to have to give up a third rounder, considering that the Rams, gave up 2 first-rounders for Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford's 33 years old. Deshaun Watson's 25. So whoever's going to trade for Deshaun Watson, they're going to probably have to throw 3 first-round draft picks in there and a player. I saw something that said that their asking price is going to be just that, 3 first-rounders and 2 star defensive players. So young players, not just any player, but young players. Well, Washington definitely has all of those assets. They've got several young defensive players that are stalwarts, that are on their way up to being Pro Bowl caliber players. Deron Payne, John Allen, Cam Curl had a great rookie season. Chase Young's off limits. He's got to be. Defensive Rookie of the Year, you would think he's off limits. So there's several young players on this defense that could fit the bill to perhaps make a move to get a Deshaun Watson. I don't think I would do it. I just don't. I think you're asking for an awful lot. Great player, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think I would do it if I was the Washington football team. So, hey, just wanted to give you a little video component of this and let you see what you're going to be getting. We're gonna be doing this, and starting on Monday every day. We'll make the other announcement about how we're going to be doing it every day, time-wise. So, just hang tight, and remember, you can check me out on social media, on Twitter at Lake Lewis, on Instagram and Facebook at Lake Lewis Jr. You can also check out Sports Journey on social media at sportsjourney.com. And then, of course, you can go to the site at sportsjourney.com. You can subscribe to this podcast, the After Practice podcast, on pretty much all the major podcast carriers: Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud. We're all on there, folks. And as always, I appreciate everyone for taking time out of your day to check me out. Let me know your feedback as always, and let me know. Do you want Deshaun Watson? Would you trade for him, or would you stand pat and build through the draft if you are a Washington football team fan? Have a good one.